How's it going, guys? Cody back again, dropping yet another video. You might remember me, you might not. I used to do this video thing a lot, dropping videos very frequently, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 a day. Died off recently, lost my love for it, then I brought it back, and then I stopped it. Anyway, away from YouTube, I've been doing a lot of networking, speaking to families that have lost prisoners through either suspicious circumstances in prison, self-inflicted deaths, so suicides, or medical negligence, which has resulted in the deaths of prisoners, sadly and tragically. God bless those prisoners. May they rest in peace. Away from that, I've still been doing the interviews and everything, setting up interviews for other people, spoken to stupid amounts of people regularly, setting up interviews and all that sort of stuff. Anyway, away from that, so Forest Bank right now, I've got some very good sources, some very good people that are in Forest Bank prison, feed me information. For those that don't know, Forest Bank prison, I think it holds about 1,460 inmates, give or take. It's a private prison, my former prison, one of the former prisons I've been in Strangeways, and I've been in Forest Bank. It's a category B. It's run by those jokers, Sodexo Justice Services, who are not fit to run a bath. And obviously it's a private prison. Now, through my various contacts within the prison, today it has come to my attention. Well, last night it was. A mother of a prisoner contacted me last night to say, Cody, I don't know why, but there was fire engines and ambulances at Forest Bank prison yesterday. So that's Sunday, when our Monday night. Today, a prisoner within the prison has contacted me to tell me that within the last 7 days, guys, a week, right, that the NTRGs, or the National Tactical Response Group officers, or to you and I, the Tornado Squad, the specialist riot squad officers that go into prisons to remain order, have been sent to Forest Bank 1, 2, 3 times in 7 days, right, in a week, right? Since Friday, I've been told there has been 8, count them 8, fires set within the prisons on various wings that have needed fire brigade, ambulances, etc., etc. I've been told that every day, and this is common in a lot of prisons, but every day there's prisoners up on the bars or over the bars. For those that don't know, if you go up onto your landing, there's bars, there's no netting in the middle, and prisoners jump on and threaten to jump off and all this sort of stuff, or they jump on the opposite side and hold on and say they're going to jump if anyone comes near them, and all that sort of stuff, right? It happens frequently in prisons. Violence is a massive problem. It's doubled. Violence has doubled in Forest Bank. Alarming rates of self-harm, alarming rates of suicide. I think there's been 5 or 6 deaths in the past 14 months. The latest one was a week yesterday, and I got that story out for anyone that may have read that. And the prisoner that died, it was a prisoner's mother that told me. Her son rang her, she contacts me, I get it out there in the media. That's what we do. This is why networking is so important. The prisoner that took his own life was a Romanian. He was on the VP wing, the vulnerable prisoners wing. I got told it was a sex case. He'd been on his buzzer. He'd slit his throat. The nurse and the medical care came, and the officers, and he was fighting with them, and he wouldn't let them treat him. He bled out, and then he died. Now, if he was a sex offender, nonce, rapist, bacon, whatever you want to call them, I've got no sympathy at all. He died a week yesterday. My thoughts and prayers go out to this Romanian man's family, because they haven't done anything wrong at all. But like I say, the amount of violence and the battles that are going on within Forest Bank, the prison is going to be, there's going to be riots at that prison. The NTRGs, or the National Tactical Response Group officers, they are, like I say, the cherry-picked prison officers that go into prisons in violent situations to regain order and control of the prison. Now, you're seeing it. We've seen it at Winchester. We've seen it at Oakwood. We've seen it at Birmingham. Right? it's going to go off. The prison system has long been a powder keg. Now, Forest Bank, like I say, the reason that I've got a grievance with Forest Bank, right, as someone that served time in that prison, a few weeks ago, right, I went to try to go to visit a prisoner that's in that prison, a young offender that's not getting any visits. His family have washed their hands of him. I went down to the jail. I booked the visit. I went to see him at the prison. As I got there, I was in the little waiting room and stuff, and I was sat on the like chairs and stuff down in the waiting room. Before you get into the waiting room, I wasn't in the prison visiting room. I was in the holding bit, and everyone sat there talking. I'm sat there with a drink and stuff, and just like talking to people, and people like, "Oh, you're a YouTube kid, aren't you?" I was like, "Yeah, yeah." And then people saying like, "I respect what you do," and keeping prisoners given a voice and all this stuff, prisoners' families and stuff, which was cool. And the thing is, they're supposed to let us in at past, right? Now, the time was like 28 minutes past, 29 minutes past, right? So I ripped this door open. I said, yeah, what's taking so long and that? Do you know what I mean? We've got visits to be going on. And this bitch, right, said to me, past. I said, you splitting hairs over a minute or two? She went, yeah. So I went and stood. I was fuming, but I thought I'd keep my mouth shut. Went and stood in the queue. Waited my turn. Now, the thing is, I had some River Island ripped effect jeans. Not ripped effect, right? You know where I'm going with this, anyone that's been on visits in prison. So I get to the counter. She points at my jeans, and this bitch goes, you ain't getting in wearing them. Dead abrupt, dead rude, couldn't wait to tell me no. The reality is, these people know who I am, and they know what I do. Anyone that knows. Like I said, I've set up interviews with prisoners' families that are suffering in prison, prisoners' families that have suffered loss where their loved one has died in prison in suspicious circumstances where they still don't know how them prisoners died. Just self-inflicted deaths where the prisoner's mental health's been neglected and he sought suicide as a way out. God bless those prisoners. And those prisoners that have died through medical negligence where they've just been left to rot, and the medical conditions that they've had have tragically killed them. Again, it's what we do. It's what we're about. We're giving prisoners a voice. We're giving prisoners' families a voice. So when I approached this thing and I kicked off, they just couldn't wait to tell me I couldn't come into the prison because of what I do. Like I say, I'm for prisoners. Now, not many people speak up for prisoners, did they? Right? A lot of people leave prison, go back to their lives. Prisoners' families lose somebody in prison and rightfully go to the media, or they contact me because I cover these deaths, or I get them out. And then I will put them in contact with the media and give them a voice, and then they will do interviews and sing from the rooftops, keep the pressure on the prison system in hope that things change. I know things are not going to change, sadly and tragically. There's going to have to be riots, in my opinion, for overalls of the criminal justice system, or as I call it, the criminal abuse system, to take place. It's going to take riots. Now, we're well on the way. Riots are definitely going to happen. It's not if, it's not when, it's not if, it is simply when. There will be riots in our prisons. I guarantee you that. Like I say, Winchester most recently, Birmingham, Oakwood, HMP Ewell. There's little pockets going off here and there. Right? The facts are, if prisons wanted to take over the prison system, and they put the heads together, they could do so. But like I say, prison succeeds in demoralising, desensitizing, dehumanizing, and making even more disenfranchised than when you enter the system. People go to prison to be rehabilitated. Ain't no rehabilitation going on in prison. No way. People grow up and they grow out of it, and they with age comes maturity, and they think, you know what, I'm not doing this no more. Most people, the longer you're in prison, the more criminal connections you make. Prison doesn't work, like I say, but people are leaving prison in body bags at an alarming rate. And what's going on in our prisons is a humanitarian crisis of the highest order. But sadly and tragically, most of these people on the right side of the tracks that want to brutalise prisoners and everything, they don't care. You see a death in custody, and you see these ignorant arseholes typing, don't do the crime if you can't do the time. Blind, ignorant fools, man. Like I say, some of these prisoners, and people don't get this, a lot of prisoners, before they've ever been criminals or offenders, they've first been victims. They've been sexually abused, emotionally abused, physically abused, abusive childhoods, grown up in care leavers, got behavioural difficulties, got mental health problems that have not been diagnosed because they are younger, and like I say, but when you're in prison, any issues you've got in your life become compounded. And when you're in prison, I know it sounds crazy, as men, what we're all guilty of, everyone does this whole macho thing, oh yeah, prison's easy and blah blah. Now yeah, you can have a laugh in jail, 1,000,000%, but the thing is, not everyone in prison has a good time, right? Not everyone is like headstrong. If you go to prison with a mental health issue, right, prison's going to be horrific. You've got prisoners that are having like psychotic episodes. They are hearing voices. They're paranoid schizophrenics. They've got ADHD. They've got Asperger's syndrome. They've got really troubled individuals and stuff. And when you lock them in prison, the most dangerous thing in prison, I've said it 1,000,000 times, isn't the bars, isn't the understaffing, isn't the drugs, isn't the debt, isn't the violence. Most dangerous thing in prison, your own thoughts. Being in prison, being locked up, right? If you're not working or on education and you are locked in yourself for sustained amounts of time, it starts mental health issues if you haven't already got them. And mental health services within prison are inadequate. You've got a lot of mentally ill prisoners that are in prison that should have hospital orders placed on them, and they should be in psychiatric units. There's people with non-violent offences, people for driving offences with mental health issues that end up in prison, end up leaving prison in a body bag. Just, where's the sense in that? Do you know what I mean? Not death by dangerous driving offences. I've been in prison with kids that have not paid parking fines for non-payment of council tax. And I've also been in prison with offenders that are in for murder and obviously serious charges, you know what I'm saying? Violent, GBH, fraud, everything from domestic violence to murder. Do you know what I mean? It goes on. But the thing is, no one should leave prison in a body bag. You know what I mean? If you're serving a whole life tariff and you are destined to die in prison, for anyone that doesn't know, for my American subscribers, a whole life tariff is like life sentence without the eligibility of parole, right? It means they'll never be able to come up for a parole window. They will die in prison. That's the sentence that was passed down to them. There's only been about 120, 130, 140 cases here in the UK. But if you are serving a whole life tariff and you die in prison, like, I get that, do you know what I mean? That's inevitable. It's going to happen at some point. But these people that are going to prison to be rehabilitated and are leaving in body bags, right, just shocks me, saddens me, doesn't surprise me. I know what goes on in jail, obviously, but it's sad. And I think if people saw the root cause of offending, rather than, we see the crimes and we want to punish the crimes, but if we go way back to that individual's, I don't know, childhood or a certain moment in their life, and you look at the start of it all and the offender behaviour and where it comes from, I think we'd have more sympathy for prisoners. And I think we'd have, not sympathy, probably the wrong word, we'd have more of an understanding as to why prisoners turn out the way they do. Now, like I say, yes, we know right from wrong. Bad childhoods and all that sort of stuff isn't, you can't condone that and say, oh, well, that explains that. But what we can do, we can understand that, think, right, well, not had the best start in life. We know right from wrong. We've committed crimes. We go to prison, right? People should be leaving prisons in a better place than when they entered. Sadly and tragically, that isn't the case. Prison body bags or body bags are as much part of prison life as the understaffing, the corruption, the drugs, the contraband, the violence, the self-harm, just prisons. What goes on in prisons is disgusting, right? And like I say, you don't get to brutalise prisoners, right, and then demand that they act as law-abiding, decent people upon release. Never going to happen. Never going to happen. With Forest Bank, guys, the fact is there's going to be riots. There's a lot of staff. You see the recent stories on Forest Bank, corrupt officers arrested for bringing contraband into the jail. I got that out. The story about the prisoner, the Romanian sex offender last Sunday who slit his own throat with a toilet seat, and as he was bleeding, he was fighting the officers off and the nurse off because he wanted to die. Take away the fact he was a sex offender. Like I say, sex offenders can rot in hell for me. No sympathy at all, right? But you've got to think that person is that desperate to die that they fight off the healthcare and officers so they can die. The kid bled out. He was put in an ambulance, and he was actually pronounced dead in the ambulance. Slit his throat, from what I've heard. It's not the first time that a prisoner has slit his throat. There was a prisoner by the name of Wayne Hurren. God bless Wayne Hurren. May he rest in peace. He slit his own throat in Wormwood Scrubs. These prisoners that are leaving prisons in body bags, right? It's not alarming people. People need to make a stand. This is fucking disgusting, right? Like I say, there's people talking about there's petitions that are going to be like made and stuff to get stupid amounts of signatures. But like I say, prisoners' families and former prisoners and stuff will sign it. I get that, right? And obviously I've got nearly 16,000 subscribers, and obviously I know you guys would sign that. But the thing is, I think it's got to go over 100,000 signatures to be actually debated in Parliament. No one cares about prisoners, right? And they should do. Because the way that we treat prisoners whilst in prison has consequences, severe consequences, for those on the outside when these prisoners are released. The way we treat prisoners whilst in prison will ultimately dictate and determine how they act upon release. I genuinely do believe that. But like I say, going back to Forest Bank, you've got to think, right? The prison's badly run from the top to the bottom. The director of the prison is a guy called Matt Spence, right? I've also found this amazing website where it gives you all the email addresses for all the prison governors up and down England and Wales, from young offenders to female prisons to secure training centres, and to obviously like locals, Cat A's down to Cat D's, open prisons, etc., etc., local jails, training jails, remand jails, young offenders, etc., etc., private prisons, public prisons, right? But like I say, Forest Bank is just, it's badly run. There's severe issues at play. The prisoners are at war with the prison officers. That is if they're not having sexual relationships with the officers in Forest Bank, because the amount of corruption in Forest Bank is through the roof. Prison officers having it with prisoners, going on. More than once, more than twice, it's going on frequently. Officers bringing contraband in, happening frequently. That you've got to think the security within the prison. These last two arrests, I won't name the two people that have been arrested. Two prison officers that were arrested recently. I got the story out. One of them was in security. The other one was a wing officer, right? He was only, one of them's 28, 29. The other one's 19. His 19-year-old girlfriend wasn't arrested, but she was suspended pending an investigation. She's now back at work on light duties. People, I know a lot about Forest Bank, so just know that. I know a lot about Forest Bank. And away from that, I'm speaking to prisoners' families that have lost someone in that disgusting prison, right? And like normally, like if you've got a prisoner that's currently in Forest Bank, ordinarily I would tell you to speak to the chaplain. Go through the chaplain, go through your solicitor, go through the chaplain. Don't bother with the chaplain. The chaplain you're not worth shit. If you are severely worried about the health, safety and well-being of your loved one in Forest Bank, and and it's imminent and you think it's a threat to life, and that person said he's going to top themselves, ring 999. Tell them the prisoner's name, ring 999, send the ambulance to the prison. Them calls are recorded, paper trail. Above that, if you're worried about the health, safety and well-being as well, you can write to the prison, but again, that will fall on deaf ears. You can go to the Care Quality Commission, the CQC. But like I say, it's timely process, and time is of the essence. Like I say, there's prisoners that are suffering in silence in prison. They may have a support network and a family, they may not. But like I say, what's going on in our prisons is disgusting. Forest Bank, I predict, there's already riots. Like I say, eight fires on different wings in 4 days. Riot squad officers, tornado squad officers, the NTRGs, National Tactical Response Group officers, armed with taser, trained in taser, are not authorised to use it. Why give them something they're not authorised to use? Going in with a shield and stuff, and the stun grenades and etc., etc. Just bully boys that want to twist prisoners up. 3 times in a week. Fire service called out. Ambulances called out. And then there's a prisoner, I won't name him out of respect. I've spoken to someone today, a mother of a prisoner whose son died in suspicious circumstances. Still doesn't know how he died. No toxicology reports have come back because apparently they've been hacked. Don't buy it myself. The prison was saying that a prison officer found him. A prisoner told the mother that a prisoner found him. This was earlier this year. This is the thing, yeah. So, and this woman today, this mother today, lovely lady, very proud lady, grieving for her son, sent shockwaves through the family, for which the family will never recover, of the death of Michael. She's told me today another mother has contacted her. Her son is very unwell, severely mentally unwell, like her son was. He's cutting himself open. They stapled his chest together. He's ripping out the staples. They found him hung up about 2 weeks ago. They cut him down. He survived, thank God. He's self-harming. He's going around with razor blades in his mouth. Mentally unwell. Mentally ill people should not be in prison. Mental health services in prison are inadequate, to say the least. Right? It's shocking. And what flows from that? Self-harm, suicide attempts, or tragically and sadly, suicide. More needs to be done, guys. We need to make a stand. I'm only one guy. I'm nobody, right? But we need to come together. Forest Bank, there's going to be riots. Currently, the wings are a war zone. It's going off. It's manic. It's crazy. And it's happening in prisons up and down the country. Don't get it twisted. Don't get it twisted. It is. But Forest Bank is a prison local to me. It's a prison that I take particular interest in amongst all the other prisons in England and Wales, from young offenders to women's prisons to Cat A's to Cat D's. But yeah, the prison, there's a lot going on. There was a HMIP report just a few weeks ago, just last week, last Wednesday. It was an embargoed story. Embargoed means you can't report it till like 1 minute past midnight of last week. And they said that self-harm would increase alarmingly. Violence had doubled. Prisoner attacks had doubled. Violence is everywhere. Obviously, where you've got contraband, you've got debt. Where you've got debt, you've got fear, intimidation, bullying, violence. We know the score. What doesn't get collated, guys, is the attacks from prison officers to prisoners, because apparently that doesn't go on. Obviously, we know different. We need to make a stand, guys. We need to come together. If you've got a loved one in Forest Bank, I'll put my phone number in the description. Feel free to contact me, and we'll talk. Right, guys, going to leave it there. Like, comment, subscribe. Cody out. I'm back.